What time is it? It's time for a whole new world. Hey everyone, welcome to Princess Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to episode 1 of Fionna and Cake. A lot of you have been really waiting for this, and I've been waiting for it too. That's the reason why I decided to go straight into this from Distant Lands. Also, the fact that Distant Lands was only 4 episodes. And I felt that this was, obviously the best time to get to this, too. I wanted to start this before the end of the year and really start to see what this series is all about. Because season 2, I think, is either still airing or just aired, and it's one of those shows that has gotten insane amounts of attention in the past years, and it makes sense with it being a spin-off of Adventure Time. So outside of that, what do I know about Fionna and Cake? Well, I know the characters of Fionna and Cake from the main series of Adventure Time. Excuse me. Fionna and Cake were characters that the Ice King created for his fan fictions. But by the logic of infinite multiverse, there is just an absolute, 100% certainty that there is a universe where there is a Fionna and Cake, at least one. And that universe would involve, Fionna and Cake, being the real versions of Finn and Jake in that universe. It just tracks that would be the case. I know that this is a multi-verse thing. I know that there's different universes in it. I don't know anything about what they are. I just know they exist, and I know that this at least starts in said universe where Fionna and Cake are real. I do know that this Fionna is notably older than the Fionna and Cake that we see in the events of the main series through the fan fictions and all. I believe the Fionna and Cake we see in the fan fictions are, because they're fan fictions of a gender-bent Finn and Jake by the Ice King, they're supposed to be the same age as Finn and Jake are. Which, just logically tracks. But I believe this Fionna and Cake have, very specific ages. And I believe they're both, adults. From what I've heard. I don't know, the specifications of that. I'm just going by what I've heard. I know that, a lot of characters from the main series do appear in here to some degree. I don't know, I don't think they're the same characters. I think they're, again, alternate versions. But, I know other Fionna and Cake characters appear, Prince Gumball, I think was the specific gender-bent name for that. And Marshall Lee. I know they appear in this. I believe Ice Queen does as well, from what I heard. And then I think there's even others that we never really saw the gender-bent versions of, or maybe only saw them in the background. And I believe there are also versions of the ones we typically know. Instead of Marshall Lee, I believe there's also versions of Marceline and Princess Bubblegum. But again, I don't actually know any real information, because I have tried to stay away from all of that to avoid spoilers, because I knew that we would be reacting to this eventually. So, I've been doing my best. I might have seen some screenshots here and there randomly, but that's about it. And if I did see them, they definitely would have been without context. But luckily, I haven't had to do much to avoid too many spoilers with this. While people do talk about this show, they don't spoil a lot, weirdly enough. Which is weird to me, because I have to avoid spoilers for so many shows out there. whether it's Has Been Hotel or One Piece or so on and so forth. I have to constantly avoid spoilers for a lot of shows, especially big ones. But for this one, it's like I didn't have to do as much. I had to do a little bit, but not as much. And that's, a pleasant surprise. I, I, I get to avoid spoilers without having to put forth that much effort. I'm good for that. But yeah, I'm very interested to see what kind of plot this has. That's one thing I'm very curious about because I don't know if this is more serialized than regular Adventure Time or if it kind of has the same episodic style. I don't know if it's going to be maybe similar to the specials like Stakes and Islands and whatnot, where it's like, oh yeah, it's an ongoing story, but there's still some episodic humor and moments in it that don't entirely carry over. It could be something like that. I don't know. I don't know. But we're going to find out. And I just want to make very clear before we begin this, no spoilers, obviously. Do not tell me anything that's going to happen. If I ask anything, I am doing so as a way of processing my thoughts. I don't want answers. Unless it's something that can be answered within this episode. I don't want answers for anything from the future. I don't want any spoilers in any way. So just please just be cautious about that. You could talk about things related to this episode or the episode that I'm currently on, or episodes that I have already watched. If anything connects to Adventure Time's main series or Distant Lands, you can also bring that up. Or behind the scenes stuff, from the creators and whatnot, as long as it doesn't spoil anything for the future. So, all of that being said, I think we're going to get into this. I think we're going to check this out, see what's in store, and hope for the best. So, let's do so. Hold up just a sec. Before you click that link down in the description below to get to today's video, I want to remind you of all the awesome content we have both on this channel and the Princess of Gaming channel. Let's check it out. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Well, this was interesting. So, it seems like this is a world where it's kind of like a modern real world. It's like the city, Fiona's like a normal person, Cake's a normal cat. All these other characters we see who are obvious representations of all these other characters. It's like this is not post-apocalyptic like Adventure Time is. It's a regular modern world. And that's not unbelievable. Again, going with the idea of the infinite multiverse, not only does the idea of a Fionna and Cake who are real exist, but the idea of oh, Ooh was never hit by this it was never hit by the comet, was never destroyed because of all of that. It's yeah, the possibility that the apocalypse never happened would be a possibility. So that's very, very interesting in and of itself. Because that raises a lot of questions too. We see a good number of other characters in this. I don't know who all of them are supposed to be, but this very clearly is meant to be like a more mature view on things, meant for an older audience who grew up with Adventure Time. Because, like, outside of even just, like, Fiona stripping, it's like the concepts in this are very much adult concepts. The idea of, work life balance, taking care of an animal, dealing with, getting fired and everything that comes from that, including, like, the deposits on the uniform. All this is stuff that, like, relates to adults. Kids could watch this and follow along probably fine, but this is clearly not meant for children. This is clearly, again, meant for the adults who grew up as children watching Adventure Time. So I think that, like, kind of lends an interesting view to it, because in that regard it's kind of similar to, hear me out here, The Legend of Korra. Because The Legend of Korra was a lot more mature in a lot of ways than Avatar: The Last Airbender. And not that Avatar wasn't mature, it was very mature. But Legend of Korra tackled things in a more adult way because the characters are older and the audience was meant to be those who grew up with Avatar. So it's like you grew up with Avatar over all these years, and then I believe Korra started in 2012, which was 7 years after Last Airbender started. So it's like you grew up with Avatar, now you're like a older teenager, young adult maybe, and so you're now going to watch this, and so we're going to have it be a little more focused towards that kind of age. And I think that it works in that regard. I think that it allows for it to feel like its own thing, feel different, but also still capture a lot of that same vibe for it. For, like, those who grew up with the original and want it to kind of, like, still feel like that. And this kind of feels like the same. Like, you still get the vibes of Adventure Time with this, but it's also very different. It's very much its own thing. Outside of that opening scene with, like, the rat bus and everything, the dream, everything in this has felt like very mature, for lack of a better word at this point, compared to Adventure Time. Even at its most mature moments, Adventure Time was still very goofy and silly and over the top. And I'm sure this series is going to get to that point once, Fiona and Cake begin traveling through universes, which very clearly is set up at the end here. But, in this episode, again, it's very much just like normal, everyday human stuff that Fiona has to deal with. And it gives kind of this almost, this very, like, trapped, sad feeling, which is very much the intent, considering, like, the theming they were, like, literally talking about with the idea of being trapped and all. So it's like, yeah, that tracks. But it's also just very interesting for other reasons. Because you have this almost oppressive feel to it. Everything feels, like, really sad, and, like, Fiona's, like, obviously not doing very well. Again, just lost another job, apparently. Had broken up with her partner, the DJ, and can't even get, like, an extension on her rent from Marshall's mother and stuff. It's like all these things kind of, like, stacking up on top of each other. It's sad. And I think that's important because obviously we're going to have the adventurous nature of all this coming up. So starting off where Fiona's kind of, like, feeling, like, trapped and not okay and everything is a smart way to kick things off. because it allows us to kind of like feel what she's feeling here. It allows us to like have this almost like painful, sad dose of reality. And it also kind of like tells us like what a lot of these cartoons are all about. Like, we use this kind of wacky, goofy cartoon to escape the monotony of the real world. We use it to escape all of the worries and pains of work life balance and having to worry about, taking care of pets and having to worry about like where our money is going to come from. Stuff like that. We're trying to escape that by going into this like the fantasy world of these shows. And some people take that to a degree where they don't like to see anything realistic in shows. They don't want like any kind of doses of the real world, and it's like, okay, that's a bit much for me. Because my view on it is these shows have to showcase reality. For the fantastical stuff to really work, the reality has to be there as well. You have to have both sides. And a lot of these shows, don't mind me, I felt like there was something going wrong there. Don't mind me. It's nothing to worry about. I just felt like I had a hair on my tongue or something. But most of these shows, like, in order to like make the fantastic, whimsical stuff more impressive, they have some kind of like sad or regretful or painful or dark kind of thing to balance it out. I think one of the better examples of this would be like Centaur World. Centaur World obviously has a lot of like goofy whimsy in it, but it also has a lot of darkness in it. And it balances both out really well. It allows us to kind of like feel the crushing nature of oppression while also having the fun whimsy of, cotton candy and rainbows. And other shows tackle this same kind of stuff. Owl House has plenty of both. Amphibia has plenty of both. Gravity Falls has plenty of both. And that balance is definitely what I feel more shows should strive to. Some shows are too whimsical. Way too whimsical, don't have enough reality to them, and it just feels saccharine. It feels like overly sweet. And a lot of times that doesn't work. Sometimes it might, but a lot of times it doesn't. And some shows are just too heavy. Way too heavy. To the point where it just really bogs you down. There's not enough whimsy to balance it out. Even when the shows can be good, even if they are more one way than the other. But for me, at least, a lot of times it can cause problems with wanting to watch them. And to give another example, I've been doing that a lot in these afterthoughts. But a good example of that would actually be Doom Patrol. If you remember my reactions to Doom Patrol, I dropped it not because it was a bad series, it definitely wasn't. It was a great series. But I dropped it because it was depressing the shit out of me. It was destroying my mental health to a very bad degree. Because the show is mostly darkness. Like, there's a little bit of whimsy in there, but it's like so minute compared to the amount of darkness and heaviness that it's really upsetting watching that show. And I had to make a decision. I had to stop watching it for my own health. My mental health was suffering watching it. So that's the kind of show I'm talking about, where it's too much one way or the other. So a lot of my favorite shows balance that out. My favorite show of all time, One Piece, balances the heavy darkness out with the whimsy really well. On a rare occasion, there might be a show like Link Click that is more dark than not that I do really love, but that's not super common. That's not super common. Link Click manages to make it work, but you can't expect that for everything. Popcorn kernel. It wasn't a hair, it was a popcorn kernel. Don't you hate when those get stuck in your teeth and then like are like wandering around your mouth forever? It's like, ugh. It's the one downside to eating popcorn. Um, anyway, got distracted by that. Um, I feel like having this start out so mundane and with, the heaviness is going to make the whimsy more interesting. Which actually kind of goes into I don't like this starting with the dream. I understand the dream was supposed to be kind of like a fake out in order to make the viewers think like, oh, this is just like Adventure Time. This is how kind of goofy and weird it's going to be. The problem is it was a terrible fake out because it was so obvious it was a dream. Like, even if you don't know where this is going to go and everything, which I didn't really either, it's like you could tell it's a dream because of like the way it's saturated and all. The way it's just like presented is very dreamlike. It doesn't feel like real in terms of its animation and color work. And so you can automatically understand that it's a dream even if the reveal hasn't happened yet. And it's just like, well, that kind of ruins the entire point of it being like this kind of like opening twist. This kind of like, oh, you thought this was going to be like the Fionna cake you saw in Adventure Time. No, this is like the real world, bitches. It's like it's not a surprise when it happens. When, Ice Prince starts screeching at her and it wakes up in the real world with like BMO as an alarm clock and shit. It's like that's not a surprise because it was obvious. It was too obvious. So it's one of those occasions where it tried to do something but just doesn't quite work out. I think it would have been better to just start out with this real world. Because the entire first episode otherwise is that. I mean, you could tell something's going on with Cake and everything, but the entire first episode otherwise is just, Fionna having to deal with these real world problems. And that's vastly more interesting to kick this off with. It informs a lot more of what the series is actually going to be like, I would feel, to show that kind of disinterested viewpoint. And that's kind of like what I really, really enjoyed about this one. Again, the difference between the whimsy and the more serious darkness. Darkness. It's not really that dark yet, but you know what I mean. The reality, we'll say. The other characters we got in this, like, seem pretty cool. Like, Marshall Lee is what I would expect Marshall Lee to be like. Gary seems pretty nice and cool. Very inventive, like Bubblegum tends to be. But, in a kind of different way. Though I guess it kind of makes sense for him to be working at a bakery, considering, Bubblegum made all the candy people and everything. Which included, obviously, a lot of, like, pastries and stuff. We saw, like, the old woman's cinnamon bun, which I never considered cinnamon bun being old. So that, I guess, like, if you want to keep, like, the visual look, then I guess that would translate to wrinkles, but we got the lemon grabs, both of them, which is fascinating. Apparently walking their dog. So that's a thing. Okay. We got LSP, obviously, who is just LSP in this. And yeah, still living basically in the equivalent of the woods. It's just this wooded area of the park, I guess, and being just as much of a weird gremlin as usual. Um, and various other characters here and there. Again, some that I didn't entirely recognize who they were supposed to be, but some even in the background. Like I noticed the one who was supposed to be like Abracadaniel, though, I guess gender swapped, and other ones like that too. But yeah, this episode like was a good start, and it definitely showcased the more mature tones right off the bat. With just again, its general concept, the general like style of what it's going for at the beginning with these more mature, again, not really dark, but adult focuses and ideas. And yeah, there is the stripping part, which I haven't really talked much about, but it's like there's not really much to say. It's just she strips. Though there were a couple scenes like before that when it was like showing like I guess what was supposed to be the opening. Um and it showed like her and like and even like just when she was in the apartment, she was also shown like, you know, wearing just her bra and stuff. And it's like, yeah, it's not unreasonable. It's like she's an adult woman. She's allowed to be, wearing her bra inside her apartment and stuff. There's also like a couple shots of her in a swimsuit. Um, but again, the scene where she like just stripped down out of her pants and was just standing there outside the bus in her underwear, and it's just like, oh, that's that's not for kids. That is not there for the kids. Also, she is thick. It's something I didn't mention at all during the reaction, but like she is like notably thick. Um, which is I feel very intentional. It does not come across as like an accident or anything. They absolutely drew her to be thick. And considering again, they literally had her stripped down to her underwear in the first episode, it's like, yeah, it was intentional. It's like that's definitely like one of the early signs of how much more mature this series is going to be because of it being on streaming. Um Even more than Distant Lands, I feel, which again got very mature but more in the Adventure Time way. The big thing with Distant Lands that was more maturely handled than regular Adventure Time was just that it was allowed to be more gay. It was more actively, constantly gay. Well, specifically with the Bubbling episode. Um, Obsidian, I think. It's like that one was very, very gay. The other ones maybe not as much. But still. And this one seems to be going even further with that. I think maybe they after doing like Distant Lands as kind of this closure to Adventure Time, um, they kind of like maybe saw it's like, oh, we can get away with more now. So let's just make Fiona and Cake even more so in that direction. Let's make it more adult than ever before. And yeah, they definitely achieved that. They definitely achieved that. Um, I very much like believe that that was the kind of mindset going on here. I mean, I might be wrong, but I don't see how that could be like anything other. Because it's like they knew what people would think if they did that. Like you have this reasonably attractive adult woman who pulls her pants down and is just standing there in her underwear with her thick ass thighs out. They knew people would sexualize the shit out of her. You absolutely know there is a shit ton of porn of that exact scene. You fucking know there is. Because they know that, like, characters like Bubblegum and Marceline got a lot of porn and stuff drawn of them. So you absolutely fucking know that there was absolutely going to be porn drawn of that. They knew. They knew what they were doing, and they did it on purpose. Because, again, this is supposed to be clearly more mature. And it's like, okay, we know you're going to do this anyway. Let's just embrace it. That's kind of the vibe it gives off. Let's just embrace it. We're going to acknowledge this character is, sexy. And we're going to show that off a little bit. But we're not going to, like, do it, like, in a fan servicey way. Because this was not fan servicey. It was done in, like, kind of like a natural way. Fiona's, like, fed up with all this bullshit, and she's like, her boss is just like, give back the uniform and everything. She's like, fine, you want the fucking uniform? Take it. And it leads to her stripping. Obviously, she doesn't say fucking, but will we get swears in this? I just thought of that. I don't think we did in Distant Lands, but will we get swearing in this? That would be interesting. I don't think we'll get an F-bomb, but that would be fascinating if we did. Honestly, based off this first episode, if anyone would drop an F-bomb, it would be Fionna. Like, this girl is like 10 seconds away from cursing someone out. Like, aggressively. Like, I could imagine it. I could absolutely imagine Fionna just snapping and, like, laying into someone. Do not obviously tell me, like I said in the pre-thoughts, when I ask questions like this, I don't actually want the answer. I'm just, processing my thoughts, getting that out there. Don't tell me anything about what's to come or what hasn't been shown in this episode. But yeah. This was a really strong first episode. It wasn't perfect. Again, my big issue was I feel like that opening dream sequence didn't need to be there. It felt like it did kind of take away from things and just didn't even work as this surprise dream sequence. So it just didn't feel like it was needed at all, in my opinion. But I would love to hear your thoughts. So tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this first episode of Fionna and Cake? What do you think of these versions of the characters, from Fionna to Marshall Lee to Gary Prince and so on and so forth? Let me know down below, and thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.